Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and we would like to welcome you to the Debe Islamic Association's Ramadan Reminders. And we continue with Chapter 12, Surah Yusuf, today being part 14. This being the 14th day of Ramadan, the middle 10 days, the days of forgiveness. So we shall now continue with the dua. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Astaghfirullah Rabbi min kulli dhambi wa atubu ilayh. I ask forgiveness of my sins from Allah, who is my Lord, and I turn towards Him. As we continue the story with Yusuf alayhi salam advising the prisoners, here he says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ya Sohibay Sijni, O my two companions of the prison. So he's addressing them with love and sincerity. My two Sahabas, my two companions. Speaking with affection gives a different mindset. And it continues, arbabum. Here, or the word hal in Arabic, usually indicates that we are now asking a question. So it's saying, arbabum mutafarrikuna. Are the separate lords khairun, better? Amillahul wahidul qahhar. So are the separate lords better, or is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the wahid, the one and only, or the qahhar, the irresistible? Which is better? A singular lord or multiple lords? And remember, al-qahhar means the subduer, the all-prevailing, the one who dominates everything, and the whole of creation has to humble itself. He has the power and control over everything, and nothing occurs without him alone. So we can recognize the sunnah of Yusuf alayhi salam with respect to dawah is that first of all he speaks about Tawheed, the oneness of Allah. Then he speaks about the Akhirah, the hereafter, and about the prophethood and Risalah. So this gives a rational argument for the situation. So Yusuf alayhi salam continues when he says, Ma ta'buduna min dunihi illa asma'a. Do not worship besides him, besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, any names, any ideas, any concepts. And here he is gently trying to show the error of their ways without belittling them. This may have been a better way than to being aggressive. And he continues, Samaytumuha, which you have named or you have invented. Antum wa aba'ukum, you and your fathers. So many of times people tend to believe just what their fathers did or their forefathers, and they follow that concept without fully grasping it themselves. Ma anzalallahu biha min sultanim, for which Allah has not sent down any command or authority for anyone to do so. Inil hukmu illa lillah. The command to worship is only for Allah and not for your king or Pharaoh to say worship me. And the ayah continues, Amara Allah ta'budu illa iyyahu. And Yusuf is reminding them, the command is for you to worship none but Allah. ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمُ. That is the religion of the right, of those who are on the correct path. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But don't be despondent, For most men do not know, and they do not understand. Since Yusuf alayhi salam completed the dawah that he was giving to them over a period of time, it was now time for him to give the interpretation of the dreams. So he says, Ya Sohibay Sijn, O my Sahabas, O my valued companions of the prison. Amma ahadukuma fayaski rabbahu khamran. As for one of you, he will give the drink of wine to his master. So he's specifically speaking to the one who had the dream about the wine pressing, that he will return to his master the Pharaoh and go back and serve him in the court. وَأَمَّا الْآخَرُ فَيُصْلَبُ فَتَأْكُلُ الطَّيْرُ مِنْ رَأْسِهِ. And as for the other one, he will be crucified, and the birds will eat from his head. And this was speaking to the baker. Let's recall that the baker and the winemaker, who were two young pagan men, were accused of trying to poison the king. But they recognized that Prophet Yusuf is a muhsin, one of those who do good, unlike the other inmates of the prison. He brings goodness even in this location. قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ الَّذِي فِيهِ تَسْتَفْتِيَانِ. And Yusuf says, this has been decreed about the matter to which you wanted to find out. So overall, the message was of Iman for the wine presser, even while he was returning to the king's palace, a place of shirk. While the message of Iman was given to the baker to save him from Jahannam as death approached. So, Iman was necessary whether we will continue to live or we are coming to death. So Yusuf alayhi salam completes his conversation with his companions when he says, وَقُولَ لِلَّذِي ظَنَّ أَنَّهُ نَاهٍ مِّنْهُمَا. And he now addresses the one out of them which he thought would be saved. And he's telling him, أُذْكُرْنِي إِنَّ رَبِّكَ. Mention me to your master. So Yusuf alayhi salam is trying to defend himself legitimately, not sitting idly by trying to contact the king to address the wrongdoings of the Aziz. So we can gain from this here that it is sunnah for us to try and defend ourselves. And it continues, فَأَنْسَاهُ الشَّيْطَانُ ذِكْرَ رَبِّهِ. But Shaitan made him forget to mention it to his master. And this is a tactic of Shaitan. And what did this lead to? فَلَبِثَ فِي السِّجْنِ بِضْعَ سِنِينَ. So he remained in prison, Yusuf alayhi salam, for a few more years. Some scholars say between 3 to 9 extra years he spent in prison because it was not mentioned. But it recognizes that nothing can happen unless Allah chooses to and when Allah wants it to be done. It could have been possible that Allah wanted to give him more time, Yusuf alayhi salam, to develop his spiritual strength, as the tasks to come would have been even more daunting than the ones that he has already faced. Let's recap the link of the number 3 in this surah. As we look at where does the surah appear in the Quran, it appears in para 12 or juz 12. So 1 add 2 is equal to 3. What number surah is this in the Quran? It's surah 12. 1 add 2 is equal to 3. How many verses does this surah Yusuf have? It has 111. 1 add 1 add 1 is equal to 3. How many letters are there of al-muqatta'at? Mystic letters. Alif, Lam, Ro. There are 3 letters. And what are the anbiya that were mentioned in this surah? Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam, Prophet Isa alayhi salam, and Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. There were 3 Anbiya that were mentioned early in the surah. And in the dream that he got, what were the celestial bodies that he dreamt? The sun, the moon, and the star, the 3 bodies. And how many enclosures was Yusuf alayhi salam kept in this story? He was kept in the well, in the room by Zulaika, and in the prison. So there were 3 enclosures. And finally, how many prisoners were there in the jail? That was of interest to us. Yusuf alayhi salam, the wine presser or butler, and the baker. 3 prisoners. We have now come to the end of part 14, and tomorrow inshallah we'll be discussing the ayahs 43 to 46. We now end with the dua. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka antas sami'ul alim. O Lord, accept this service from us, for indeed you are all hearing, all knowing. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.